Actually, I do hear something behind you. Is that like a lawnmower or something?
Yes.
Oh no. Well, I guess we'll just work. I think if you're talking, I don't hear it. But when it got silent for a
Okay.
second there, I was
Yeah.
like, but I don't hear, yeah, I don't hear it when you're talking. So it's fine.
Okay.
Can't really do anything.
My
Okay.
neighbor's obsessed with his lawn. He's out there every single fucking day.
Are you serious?
hmm
Dang, that's
He's
dedication.
retired. Yeah. So now I don't see you. Oh, there we go.
Okay, you were
Okay.
frozen for a second. Okay, we're good.
hmm
Okay, let's get started. So, welcome to Thought Garden on the Air, where we explore the strategies, stories, and skills that shape the most compelling personal brands and talented professionals today. I'm your host, Alexis Quintal, the CEO and owner of Rosarium. We are a personal branding and public relations firm dedicated to helping entrepreneurs, business leaders, and influencers monetize and elevate their personal brand. So, for season two, we're excited to expand our focus beyond authors and really focus into the broader world of personal branding. So whether you're an entrepreneur, an influencer, or an expert building your narrative, we're here to help amplify your voice. And today we have a great storyteller and entrepreneur, Ciji Castro. She's the founder of Domestic Gourmet. She's actually created the first ever organic.
Annatto
I just
Oil.
got annatto oil.
Yeah.
No, I just heard the lawnmower. It sounded like it got so close. Hold on, let me start over with the intro part of you.
Okay.
Today, I'm joined by Ciji Castro. She's the founder of Domestic Gourmet, which is the brand behind the first ever organic annatto oil on the market. Ciji's on a
Yes.
mission to bring bold Latin flavors to modern kitchens and honoring deep culinary traditions. We'll dive into her journey, her love for cooking, and how she's turned family recipes into pantry staples. So, Ciji, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's dive right in. What inspired you to start Domestic Gourmet, and let's talk about these Latin flavors you're bringing into modern kitchens.
Well, what inspired me to start the domestic gourmet food side, the manufacturing side of my company, was basically what was available to us wasn't healthy. So I've spoken about this in the past, but my grandmother was diagnosed with a couple types of cancer in her 80s. And in a discussion with my kids on red dye number 40, I was able to correlate that red dye number 40 actually causes those types of cancers. Now, it was in every single Latin product that was in my pantry. And knowing now that we have that family history and there was no way I could serve that to my children. So I started making my own. And that is basically really the TLDR of how I got into food manufacturing.
Yeah, so you kind of recognize like maybe this food that we're eating is not great for you. So,
No,
how can
we
we
deserve better. My kids
right,
deserve
right,
better.
right. How do we
And
make a difference for our kids?
yeah, yeah, there was no way that I could give that to them moving forward. So, and then, also Domestic Gourmet started as a digital media marketing company. I was
Mm,
influencing quite a bit and covering stories on chefs and restaurants that interest me. I am a real deal food lover.
right, you're the
Always
real
have been.
foodie.
I am. My mother was the OG, and so like I get it from my parents. And I remember being a kid and just constantly being encouraged to try the scary things, to try snails and to try frog, and to try turtle. And I've
Oh,
eaten everything. And my growing up, my Puerto Rican side of the family, we cook snout to tail. So, I remember being little and being like, hey, try this tail or try a piece of this brain, and it was just it was okay if you didn't like it, but
hmm
I love to just experiment. So that's what my business started as. But as a stage 4
okay.
endometriosis patient, my business model started to suffer whenever I would have flare-ups or I needed a
Mm,
major surgery 2 years ago. That involved multiple surgeons, took many hours, and I actually had to fly to New York for it. So, now I was out of work for about 3 to 4 months, and I realized I needed to pivot Domestic Gourmet and come out with a product that, could go on its own, with a
hmm
staff that didn't constantly rely on my physical presence, um,
Right.
to keep it going.
Yeah. So how long ago did you kind of have this pivot?
That was the turning point. The turning
Hmm.
point was my surgery. I batch content, so I had content constantly coming out.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the beginning of the conversations of, okay, this isn't working. This isn't something that is long-term sustainable. And I've
Hmm.
always wanted to create something. I love to cook for people. I love to just feed people and see the reaction. This is how I show my love, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
have people over and I will cook everything for you. And it's just, I love food, makes us happy. It brings us
Mhm.
together. It
Yeah.
crosses cultures and religions. And it really is, a world uniter. So
Hmm.
that's my jam.
Yeah. So how has this kind of shaped your perspective now? Like, you've obviously tried a couple different realms with your business and you've been through some challenging times. So, what is your perspective on the future?
To keep doing what I'm doing. So I started with Organic Annatto Oil only because it was not available. Like you can't
Mm,
buy it. But it
yeah.
is something that is like what is it? What I want to say, like a pillar in the Puerto Rican and Dominican, Caribbean, Southeast Asian kitchens. But you can only get it if you make it from scratch. And I thought to myself, why can't we buy it? And why
Right.
can't I make it with high quality organic ingredients?
Right.
Um, so I went back to school. I went to the University of North Carolina and I got my acidified foods manufacturing certification, which was really
Wow.
hard. I,
Yeah.
it was one of those things that I'm like, I'm in biochemistry and I'm learning, about foodborne illnesses, and I'm
Mm,
just like, I think I'm in over my head. But
yeah.
once I understood everything, I'm like, the possibilities are endless.
Right.
And I can make all kinds of things and I can make them safe and I can make them
Hmm.
clean. And we don't need the
Hmm.
preservatives.
Yeah.
There's plenty of, nature's bounty to keep our food safe.
Hmm.
And honestly, I looked at the price point, of what it would, cost to make organic food from scratch versus what's available. And it really is right on par. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm not going to price myself out of this either. Like I could totally do this.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming next.
Okay.
I have my packaging in production. And
Mm.
so I'm going to be doing, our seasoning salts that we use in our cooking. So we have adobo, which is, garlic powder, onion powder, salt,
Mm, yes.
oregano, just
Delicious.
all these wonderful like spices that make your food nice and rich. And then
Hmm.
there are these little packets that a lot of people use called sazon. And it adds coloring to your food. That's what gives us the yellow rice and the bold colors and our stews and our beans. Um, and that's supposed to be the annatto seeds ground up, right? But that's the last ingredient because before that, you have MSG, you have yellow number 4, and you have red dye number 40. Annatto is the very last ingredient when it's like, why are we don't need
Mm,
any of that. Annatto is
right.
red. It will color everything that you want to color. Use as much much of it as you want.
Yeah.
And it adds like a nice richness. So I'm like, I could do this myself. I'm doing
Yeah.
it for my kids already. And I would love to do it for my community and
Mm,
also give something that is still, traditional in flavor, authentic to our roots. And it's kind of like bringing back, our ancestors who, a lot of times the women were home cooking everything from scratch. But
yeah.
now, our generation, it's different. We're all working, we're moms, we're juggling everything. We don't have
Hmm.
time to come home and do it all from scratch. So I want to give
Right.
that to people and just make it accessible and available
Mm,
and still wholesome.
yeah. I'm curious to know, you said as a kid you were open to trying all these things. Are your kids picky or are they open to trying like snail and
So I have
kale and
3 kids. I have
yeah.
3 kids, and, so I have one that's really picky, and
Okay.
the younger one, she's 4, she'll eat whatever I'm eating. She always
Okay.
has. So, like, she'll just eat it without even knowing. She'll just try it. My older one, she's 9 now, and she is very adventurous. She says,
Oh,
she's
good.
gonna grow up to be the next Domestic Gourmet, and she's gonna take over the company,
Ooh.
and she's got I love it because, and so I tell people, like, Domestic Gourmet is like we can all be a domestic gourmet. It's
Yeah.
just it's people who love to cook, who want to cook from,
Yeah.
from scratch, and who care about, where their food comes from. So anyone could be a domestic gourmet. So I'm like, yeah, kid, get it. But when they were little, like I would rename things. So like I love squid ink pasta. So I would just tell them it was Halloween
Mm.
spaghetti, like
Yeah.
I would just rename things, make it kid friendly, make it approachable, and,
Yeah.
and they ate it up and loved it.
Yeah. So who inspired or mentored you along the way?
I've had lots of mentors. I've actually been very lucky. My great aunt, my tia Lourdes, she has taught me a lot of cooking. When I first met my husband, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how.
Mm.
The only thing I knew how to make was white rice, because my mom would just call me and be like, "Start the rice. I'm on my way home."
Yeah.
But my mom was like OCD clean. She was like Martha Stewart. That Martha Stewart was on every day. My mom had the butter
Yeah.
molds, everything.
Yep.
So, the regards for like making everything from scratch and in my kitchen all day, I get that from my mom.
Hmm.
Learning, the roots of Cuban cooking, I get that from my tia Lude. And then, growing up with my Puerto Rican grandmother, I missed her food. I
Mm.
loved her. She was my favorite. And so I get those recipes from my husband's aunt and his mother when she
Oh,
was with
okay.
us. So I'm able to.
Both sides of the family. I love that.
Yes, yes. No, my husband's family has adopted me, and I them. I got
Yeah.
to be lucky there. But so that's my niche, right? I'm Cuban and Puerto
Mhm.
Rican, and I fuse the two.
Yeah.
So like my Cuban side of the family had no idea what annatto oil was, because it's not something Cubans use. But I'm like, we can use this as a base in all of our cooking. When I
Yeah.
did a special for NBC's WFLA, where they came here to my home and garden and we
Mm.
cooked from the garden, I whipped up a vinaigrette with it, because
Ooh.
it adds this like nice, rich, savory note to really anything. It's very mild, but it's just beautiful in color. I actually have to
Mm.
grab a bottle to show you, but
I
um,
know.
one second.
Okay.
So this is it.
Oh, wow. You're right. It
I
is
filled it too
red.
much because this is like my home bottle. So
Yeah.
I filled it too much. I can't put the cork down. But this is what adds the color to your yellow rice,
Yeah.
and the richness to stews and whatnot. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm
Wow.
trying
That's
to,
beautiful.
show it to the world.
Mhm.
Have everybody use it.
And you said you started as more of like a media company, a content creator. So, I love talking
Yeah.
about personal branding. It almost sounds like you started as a personal brand and now kind of
Mhm.
turned it into a business. A lot of people are the other way around, right? They start their business and then, a couple of years in, they realize, oh, I also, have a personal brand that I could use. So I'd love to hear kind of
Mhm.
your insights into, how personal branding has impacted your journey, any advice for anyone else that's either starting a business or is interested in personal branding but learning what that means.
For me, I feel like if you stick to what you're passionate about, you can talk to anyone about it. I
Mhm.
love people. I always have been a social butterfly. Um, but I went to school for criminal justice with a minor in counterterrorism. So
Oh,
I
wow.
was a certified hostage negotiator when I graduated college.
What?
And negotiating has helped me a lot, because
Okay, yeah.
it's what's gotten me in kitchens. Like, I think one of the most iconic kitchens I've ever had the honor of stepping into was Chef Morimoto. And he
Mm.
didn't let anyone in his kitchen that day. He was just like, everybody out, everybody out. It was a busy day. And I got myself in. And so not only did I
Mm.
get myself in, but I got a hug. And he was just amazing to me. I mean, an
Yeah.
icon. And it was truly one of my career's biggest honors. But I feel like if you show respect, expect nothing in return. And I feel like, I realized, so the way Domestic Gourmet really popped off was there was an opportunity that was untapped. Michelin
Mhm.
Guide came to Tampa,
Mhm.
and being a lover of food and of fine dining, I was really proud. I'm born and raised in Florida, and I was born in Tampa. So when they came to my hometown, my husband was like, we got to go on this tour. And so that's what I did. I stopped at every restaurant. And what people don't realize is, these restaurants will get a star or, a bib gourmand or a recommendation. But if you actually go to Michelin Guide on their app, there's dishes that they recommend. It's not like just go here. They want you to try a certain cocktail or a dessert, or you have to get this dish. And so that's what I did. I ordered everything, and I paid for it all, because I know what it's like. My grandmother was a caterer. Like my family, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad had his own business. My tia Lourdes, my tío Chucho, they own a plant nursery, and now my cousins have taken it over. So, I know what it is that, when there's a business, you have to support that business. But whenever I would call, after I made my reservation and be like, hey, can I interview the chef? There was a lot of pushback. And it was because what's happening is there's the market is saturated with influencers, and influencers will build their following and then be like, hey, I have a large audience. Can I get a free meal? Can I get a free ride? And so, I'll never forget, I went to Roca, and that was one of the hardest interviews that I had to get, that I worked to get. And, at the end of the day, it was because they get hundreds of calls a week for free meals, and meanwhile, Chef Bryce is busting his ass in his kitchen, working for his Michelin star. And Roca has the reputation where they don't need to give out free meals, so once I realized that, I've earned my respect down the road. There are lots of chefs who don't let people in their kitchens, but they let me in their kitchen. And it's because I truly respect what goes into running a restaurant and what goes into driving a kitchen. And, I respect that everyone needs to make $1 and I ask for nothing in return. But that was the beginning, right? And people who are like, oh my gosh, you paid for all your meals or you paid for everything, you didn't get anything free. It's like every business you put money into. Every business. I don't care what business you're starting. If food manufacturing, you got to buy the food, you got to buy the bottles, you got to rent the kitchen, and it's no different. If you want to have, a brand, you got to put that money in, because now, right? I don't know how many years it's been, maybe 3.5. Now all the requests are coming to me, every single day. I have offers, and I worked for those, but I'm so thankful that now I'm not the one having to do the cold calls. I built a reputation. I respect, the relationships that I've made. And so it does come back to you, just like when you put money into a product and you put that that product on the market, people will find you and then they'll start buying. And then, so different. I feel like when you build a personal brand, your product is you or your brand, and you have to put money into it. You have to put time, research into it. I never went to a restaurant without researching everything on who I was going to interview. I do all social media. I do the Google. I want to read every article. I want to know where they learned, what they're passionate about. And oftentimes we had shared interests, and it's different than, meeting a friend. You can grow off that shared interest and have a very successful interview, and then maybe a long-term business relationship where you can collaborate down the road.
Right. So these interviews you're hosting, are you actually going into their kitchen and, you're bringing your camera, or are you using your phone? I'm just trying to imagine what this is like, because I've never experienced this myself.
Yeah, I would take my camera, and I actually film off my phone. So my camera, my phone, lighting equipment, everything it can fit in a clutch. And I mean, I have all kinds of little tools and tricks to make food look glorious on the fly, to go. So yeah, for me, it's every chef is different. What are they known for? Chef Bryce from Roca, he's known for dry aging Rohan duck in-house.
Wow.
Chef Eric, from Koya, he has this temperature, humidity controlled little fridge with his tuna and his, and what he gets from, this. He has a personal shopper at this world famous fish market in Japan that literally goes every week and then sends it to him every Wednesday. He picks it up.
Personal shopper?
Yes,
Wow.
he brings in the best of the best around the world. And so, those are the things that I want to see as
Right?
cook, now executive chef of Domestic Gourmet. There's Chef Fabrizio in Orlando at the Ritz-Carlton. Oh, sorry. We need to cut that. We need to
Okay.
cut that. We can't have that. It's okay. Let me start again.
Okay.
We have Chef Fabrizio of the Four Seasons in Orlando, the Disney World property, and he has a pizza oven, and he's from Italy, and his food is phenomenal. Everything
Mm.
comes in from Italy, and actually, that was the first, and at the time, the only. I don't think there's another one, but he received a special award from the Prime Minister of Italy as being the
Oh.
most authentic Italian
Mm.
restaurant outside of Italy because
Wow.
everything is brought in. Yes. Oh, his food is
It's
phenomenal.
quite an honor to get. I
Oh,
feel
is
like
he?
every pizza place says like, "Oh, we're the most authentic, award-winning," but he's
No, no, no. And they
next
talked
level.
about that. Actually, I just so happened to be there that night. It was a truffle dinner
Mm.
from Piemonte, and I just happened to be there when they gave him that award. And they talked about how, you go to these restaurants that say they're authentically Italian,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
half of the products that you're eating aren't even imported. So um, things that like that have interested me.
Mhm.
So I find what's interesting and I ask to see it.
Yeah. I love that.
If they're working so damn hard to preserve and these products, of course they're going to be proud to show them to you. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you work hard for it. That took time and attention to detail, and it's intentional. And I so yeah, so that's how I got lucky.
I love that. Do you have any advice for aspiring culinary entrepreneurs that you'd like to share?
Niche, for me, when I first started, this domestic gourmet started by accident. It was during the pandemic, and I was home um, cooking everything from scratch. I used to run a community organization for women and young children, preschool age children, and the pandemic killed that because we were no longer able to gather. So I was home with nothing to do, cooking from scratch, and that's really when people were like, "You really need to start a business from this." So I did all the foods that I love to eat, food from scratch, and could have been Italian, could have been German, Spanish, just whatever I love. And but as I got into the celebrity chef scene, I want to say that happened about a year and a half ago, where I started making
Mm.
a name for myself amongst celebrity chefs and at these, really exclusive food and wine festivals. I realized that everyone who was successful was true to their roots. And my roots are that I'm Cuban and Puerto Rican. And our
Mhm.
food is delicious. And I know it better than
Mhm.
better than anyone because it's mine, right? Now, there's lots of Cuban content creators and there's tons of Puerto Rican content creators, but there's not that many Cuban and Puerto Rican content creators. And that's where, I feel like I've pulled from having a fine dining background because my mother loved fine dining and so did my dad. Um, and I've pulled from my Cuban and Puerto Rican roots and then from my own passion of growing my own food and making it from scratch. And now, for my product line, working with local farmers to get that produce, get it as close to home as possible, as clean as possible. I am having a hard time finding organic garlic. So, my
Wow.
adobo is not going to be organic starting out, um,
Mm.
but it's going to be clean. And, I mean, I'm making it all from scratch. So I
Mhm.
feel like it's going to be as good as it can be. It's what I'm
Right, right.
family. So, and I have very high standards for what I feed my families. And that's what I want
Mhm.
to feed, my audience. That's what we
Yeah.
deserve.
Yeah, so your advice is to find that niche, right? Find what your specialty is,
Yeah.
maybe look at some of your culture or your experience, or, you know, where you can really fit yourself in without trying to do too much, right?
Yeah.
Or be too broad.
If you're passionate about it and you
Hmm.
can share that passion, then other people will become passionate about your work.
Hmm. Yes.
So
And so what,
authenticity.
okay, yeah, your authentic self.
Yeah.
What is, tell us more about the newest product that you're coming out with. What's the timeline of that? Where can someone get it? And all
So
the
right
details.
now, I'm 100% e-commerce.
Okay.
So right now, domesticgourmet.com, there's a shop there, and that's where you can get right now the Organic Annatto Oil. Hopefully, I'm hoping by summer. So for the adobo no sazon, what's making the timeline a little longer than I would have liked is I developed my own containers. So it was really important for me to keep on with, you know, I want to sound too crunchy, but I love the earth, right? And I
Yeah,
know that sounds like
you
super
should.
crunchy,
We
but
all should
you
love
know,
the earth.
we all should. But so it's important for me not to have a whole lot of waste.
Hmm.
So plastic was out, right? So
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, well, glass is more sustainable. But then I'm like, how often do I have to replenish, my spices? Often. So I didn't want that waste. So I found a company that was able to create for me a biodegradable, recyclable paper tube. So it is a cardboard tube with a glassine liner. So the glassine makes it moisture proof. So your spices won't get just like clumped together.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it's made out of birch wood and a little window so you can see what the spices are. So, and I feel like, okay, they're a little more expensive than plastic and glass, but you'll be able to throw it in your garden. You'll be able to throw it away or recycle it, and you won't have to worry about the waste. And so,
Hmm.
with that being said, I just approved the final designs, and so
Oh,
it's going to
yay.
take like a week to get a prototype. And once I
Yeah.
approve the prototype, then it's going to take like 2 to 3 months to get my
Okay.
delivery. So I'm hoping by summer.
Okay. And so this is the
Yeah.
line of spices, and it'll be
Yes.
available on your website.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I'll do a blast. And of course, to your audience at Rosarium, everyone, I'll get you a special code for discount.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
this sounds amazing. Definitely want to know. So where can someone follow along with you? I know you said your website. How about, your personal brand? Where's a
Yeah.
good place to see some of your content? Stay
So
connected.
funny enough, I was in one of your very first like PR marketing master classes.
Yeah.
And I remember you said you were like, Google yourself. So I Googled
Yep.
myself and I had like the top 4. I'm like, well,
Okay.
shit, I've got work to do. So, and
Love
I
it.
remember, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm everywhere. I'm on TV,
Mm.
I'm in print, I'm everywhere. So after that, I
Hmm.
started backlinking myself and making sure that every time I go on a show, I'm like, please, in the description, type my
Good.
name, type Ciji
Yeah.
Castro
All you
Domestic
can do is
Gourmet.
ask. Yep.
That's it. So now I'm on like the first 3 pages.
Ooh.
So
I'm gonna go
yes,
Google you after
yes.
this.
Google me, yes. So I'm everywhere, and it's Domestic Gourmet, every social media platform. I
Okay.
trademarked it, so it's mine. So
Hey.
I'm everywhere. So, but Instagram is my biggest, my favorite.
Okay.
So I'm also on TikTok, but TikTok, you never know. It's like it's here, it's not, it's here.
Yeah, I think
So, yeah,
Instagram should be good.
Instagram,
Are you on LinkedIn?
of course, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Love LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
easy.
that's where I, try to collaborate and also,
Mhm.
when you asked, how can people, kind of grow their brand, um,
Mhm.
since I don't have an agent or a manager, I will go to LinkedIn and I'll type in a restaurant or a grocery store or a hotel, and I find out who their marketing team is, and sometimes I'll
True.
just send out an email,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
All you
LinkedIn
have to do
is
is
a
ask,
great.
right? Initiate that
That's it.
conversation.
That's it. And not enough of them, and you'll get back a yes
Right. Right.
eventually.
Exactly. Eventually,
So
you will get a yes.
you will. All
I
you gotta
love
do is
that.
ask.
I love that. Well, thanks so much for joining and for sharing. So with that, we conclude another episode of the Thought Garden. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow us. We're on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and of course, social media. And if you have a story to share or know someone who does, you can reach out to us at rosarium.work or on any of our socials, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Fat Garden.